Okay, we are recording this so that anyone who's missing it can be watching online afterwards on YouTube. So I hope that's all okay with you. And hopefully we'll be sharing the link for anyone who wants to rewatch or catch up later again. So we know this is a very popular topic. We might have many requests afterwards to watch again. So some excitement during lockdown for us in Hong Kong in particular. So if you guys want to be typing any questions in the chat in the meantime, there's the Q&A function, which I believe everyone can use. And then we're going to be handling any kind of questions that you have during an allocated question discussion time as well. And then any other questions you have in the meantime, just keep, plugging in as a discussion happens, and we can ask the speakers and the panelists what they think as well at the right time. So yeah, a couple minutes to go. If anyone wants to share a word in the chat box about how they're feeling about today's event, maybe share anything that you want to discover from the speakers today. Want everyone to be an active part of, even helping to frame today's discussion. If you've got any urgent thoughts on your mind or anything you really want answered today by the panelists, do send it in the chat box now. Anything you want me to talk about or ask the speakers about, make sure to be active today. I know we're not able to meet in person, but we're still able to kind of, get to know you guys who are on the other side of the screen as well, and hopefully make some connections today. So I think we're seeing a lot of people attending from Hong Kong and China region, which is great. A few people from Southeast Asia signed up, and then we've also got a few from Europe and the West joining us, which is why we kind of made it on this time zone, which is good. And then we've got a few team members joining from our side as well. So hello to everyone, and hi to everyone who I may recognize as well. Okay, oh, it's 4:30 now already. Okay, well, we'll just leave it 1 or 2 extra minutes, see if there's anyone else who wants to join. Hello, everyone who's joining at the moment. Thanks for joining and coming along today. We're going to get started in a minute, just waiting for a few more guests to arrive, and then we'll get started. So today's topic, actually, as you know, in this first slide, how to encourage women to lead across the supply chain. Definitely something I'm personally passionate about. So I'm really looking forward to today's discussion and the things that we're going to hopefully learn from each other and share. And want to encourage everyone who's joining us right now to start adding your questions into the chat box, your suggestions about what you want to hear from the panel today. This is an active event, so we're not expecting you to be sat at home in your pajamas, thinking to yourself, but we want you to be actively participating. Well, that's fine if you want to do that. But if you don't want to do that, be sure to be active, participating. Even though this is a Zoom webinar, we still want to feel like we're in person, getting to know each other. We want to hear from you, importantly. So everyone here has a voice, as we always say. So make sure to participate, share your voice, share your feelings, share what you like, as well as what you don't like about the event, perhaps. We're up for any kind of feedback, as we always encourage. So yeah, okay, we're seeing people coming in. We're still only 1 minute in, so we'll give it another 1 minute and then we'll start. Anyone else who joins can, get up to speed as well. We're also recording this event for the purposes of anyone who's sadly missing out today or unable to make it. We'll be recording, so don't worry for all your colleagues or requests we've had from people who want to join. We've actually been really impressed by the response and the fact that we've had almost 150 people sign up online, which demonstrates this topic, I think, is something that a lot of people are passionate about in today's world. But obviously, we're all struggling with some of the challenges. So I'm looking forward to discussing this today because I feel like this isn't a topic that has been discussed in this specific angle much, and it's something that comes up a lot for us when we talk to people in the industry. So looking forward to seeing how we cover this topic and the different challenges facing having women to lead across the supply chain. So yeah, just emphasize again, anyone be putting your Q&A, your questions into the chat box. Let's be active. Let's be making suggestions. Even to our current team members out there, do say hello, do introduce yourselves for the benefit of anyone. If you want to, use this space to just share who you are and what you do, please do also comment with that in the chat box and we'll be happy to hear from you. Let's try and make some friendly connections today and do a bit of networking, even though it's also online. All right, so I'm going to get started actually now because we are a few minutes in. So firstly, thank you again to everyone who is helping us to arrange this event today, whether that is you as a speaker or a panelist or the team behind the scenes who has actually helped to get today started and to where it is. I'm personally very excited to be discussing this topic today. I mean, I personally love this topic and I'm very passionate, but I didn't expect that so many other people would be too. Well, I kind of did expect that, but I think we've been really impressed by the response. And obviously it goes to show for the incredible panelists that we've managed to convince to join us today as well. And we're all really excited to hear from. So the topic is how to encourage women to lead across the supply chain. And we're aiming today to really cover the whole breadth of the supply chain. So not just the factory and the workers, but also right up to the brand level. How can we encourage women to step up and lead? This ties in with obviously International Women's Day being at the beginning of March, and wanting to really cover this topic throughout the whole month and celebrate women, but also look at the challenges critically to how we get more women to step up. So the agenda for today, to let everyone know, is we're gonna obviously try and sum up today's event within 60 minutes. And firstly, we're going to do a quick just opener on our topic today, what we're going to cover, just to kick it off, let you know what the discussion's about. I'm going to be your host today. My name is Marianne. I'm the founder and CEO of KNO Global for anyone who I haven't met before, perhaps. And secondly, we're going to be meeting our speakers, who are the most important people here today, who you're all here to meet, I'm sure. Panel discussion, we're aimed for about 30 minutes, which will be questions kind of led by myself and also just allowing panelists to even come up with their own questions for each other, perhaps. Hopefully it'll be a bit of a fiery debate and discussion, all opinions welcome, and we'll see, what the different opinions, how they align. After that, we'll do some questions from the audience, which is where you guys and everyone who's attending today will get to share your opinions, your thoughts, your voice about what you think on the topics discussed today. And after that, we'll do a quick summary and also a thank you again to everyone. So I want to emphasize again, for those of you who didn't already hear it, that you are welcome to participate actively throughout today's event. So do be typing in the chat with any questions that you have, any burning issues or challenges you have with this space that you want to ask the speakers. Now is your chance, now is your time to have all those burning questions answered. So don't hesitate and do make sure that you're active in the chat throughout, even as we're speaking. So to kick off, why are we here today? It's because we all found in some way this title attractive or appealing. So how do we encourage women to lead across the supply chain? We're going to cover a couple of things in the discussion. Firstly, why are we still here? Perhaps what are the limits to progress which mean that we're even having this conversation today? Which links to some of the challenges that we're facing. We're going to give you some real life examples from people on the ground and people who are experiencing this in their day-to-day work. As well as factory perspectives, we'll be hearing brand perspectives. The panel today is quite varied on their perspectives and take on this challenge. We'll also be discussing the topic of collaboration and change. How do we unlock change in this space, and how do we actually make collaboration happen, which is often a hot topic and goal. Then we'll be going on to awareness, and we hope that everyone, as a result of today in this event, comes away with some positive examples and takeaways about things that even you today in your current environment can be doing differently to encourage more women to step up and lead across the supply chain. So we want this to be practical, we want this to be fun, we want this to be challenging as well. So these are some of the goals for today and the topic. So I want to introduce firstly our amazing speakers, and thank you again for being here with us. So firstly, we have Matt Friedman. I'll ask you all to do a quick intro in a minute, by the way, but I'll just sum up for the benefit of the audience. So Matt is the CEO of the Mekong Club, an amazing organization here in Hong Kong that is dedicated to modern slavery, human rights, and anti-trafficking across the region. Matt is also a well-known author and speaker on this topic over many years. And many of you may even know him already and have worked with him before. Paul is also an amazing guy, as the title suggests, because he is Chief Amazement Officer, which is one of the best titles I've ever heard, at a manufacturing company called Hanin. He's a second generation manufacturing owner, and we're here today to welcome him as well. And then Leanne is the head of global supply chains at Diginex and has over 10 years of experience working as a sustainability professional, also at the UN and various other companies. And Diginex is a blockchain supply chain transparency solution, which is very exciting too. And Kenneth is the regional CSR manager for Vana, a Norwegian brand with supply chain all across Asia. And he's also spent a very long time working in different brands and the audit industry in the space. So yeah, that's a quick welcome from my side, but I'll just go back one by one for everyone to introduce themselves quickly. So yeah, Matt, would you like to just introduce yourself to the floor and perhaps, what one thing you're hoping to get out of today?
Yeah, Matt Friedman, CEO of the Mekong Club. Been working on the issue of modern slavery, forced labor, human rights for about 35 years. I started with the US government, USAID, did 6 years with the United Nations. Now I run an organization that works with the private sector in a positive, supportive way to help them to understand the issue of human trafficking and what they need to do. What I'm hoping to get out of this is clarity, to have those of us who are kind of offering kind of the expert side, learn from the people who are participating, because for this really truly to be a participatory process, it has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks. Paul, do you want to share?
Okay. Oh, hi. My name is Paul Chan, and I'm the Chief Amazement Officer from Hanin Garment, or Hanin Enterprise. Actually, I've been in business for more than 25 years now. So yeah, I run a factory, I run a supply chain. So and I'm very excited to be here. Definitely, and I'm definitely looking forward to share my experience with everyone today. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah. And Leanne?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. So I think I am probably most excited about seeing how we can increase women's representation, both in the labor market overall, but also at the managerial or supervisory level within global supply chains, because I do think that women can have a huge positive impact, not just on their own immediate families, but also in the communities in which they live. So I think I'm really excited about the transformational power of this topic, and looking forward to the discussions today. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. And Kenneth?
Hi, I'm Kenneth Hui from Vana. And basically I've worked in the CSR area for more than 10 years. And from my past experience, if we talk about social, if we talk about compliance, always about wages, always about health and safety, always about how to get documents. But gender diversity is a very important and very interesting topic, which we are easily get omitted in our area. So I'm really hoping we could get more in-depth discussion here, and not only talks about something related, but also share about some experience for you guys. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm personally really impressed and excited by all the different experiences we've got in the same room today. So I know it's going to be an amazing discussion. So to kick off, we are going to do a panel discussion, which is basically, I'm going to start off asking a few questions to everyone just to get it started. But obviously, you want everyone in the audience to start thinking about your own questions, writing them in the chat box, and also just responding to anything that's said as well. And we'll get back to them as well and ask some of your questions on the next bit. So to kick off, I wanted to touch base with something that came up during our discussion as, preparation for this event. We got together with all the speakers and the panelists and asked them, what do you want to talk about today? What are the really critical things? And one thing that came up was, the progress of this issue today and why is this discussion still ongoing? So I wondered if anyone could kick off by sharing a bit about why you think progress in the industry is where it is today, or any feelings that you have about the progress of the industry today on this topic.
I'm happy to start off. The title of the program today is How to Encourage Women to Lead. I think the desire and the encouragement is there. It's the situation that allows it to translate from their desire to action. And I think a lot of what we see, or at least that I've seen across Asia, working with various businesses and supply chains, is that there is an old school culture. This type of work needs to be done by men. This type of work is male oriented. And so while women work in a lot of the factories and they have tremendous experience and probably a lot to offer in this process, they often don't get these opportunities. The other thing about this isn't a new thing. I mean, I worked with the United Nations, which is supposed to be one of the most gender diverse organizations you could imagine, but I often had my women employees face resistance from people who really didn't kind of accept or tolerate or want them to be a part of certain decision making at certain levels. So, I mean, what we're dealing with here is something that's been around for a long time. I don't want to say it's going to take time in order to sort this out, because there should be a sense of urgency. There should be a sense of this is just not right. Everyone has an opportunity to contribute. What men contribute and what women contribute are different, but complementary and supportive. And if we could just get more women involved, I think we would have a much more holistic, vibrant, innovative set of supply chains across Asia.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Matt.
I think the other critical issue is about gender stereotypes. And I think those are things that it's kind of everywhere. We hear it a lot about, maybe women aren't aggressive enough. Maybe they're too emotional. Maybe they are, and there's all these sorts of notions about who a woman is that I think sometimes creeps in and impedes them from gaining the trust of their male colleagues in terms of being in a management position. And, with that, I think in a lot of countries, education is also a critical part of that. Unfortunately, in a lot of the countries where supply chain manufacturing takes place, the education levels of women are not necessarily the same. So we see higher dropout rates, amongst women. So I think those two issues about educational attainment in certain countries, not everywhere, but also pervasive gender stereotypes about what leadership is, what a strong leader looks like. I think that's sort of two critical factors that sort of stop progress from being made.
Yeah, thanks, Leanne. Yeah, that's really insightful as well. Would anyone else like to share as well any experiences that they particularly had?
Maybe I'll speak a little bit. I run a factory. Actually, I'm a second generation. So my parents started this business. My dad is on the marketing, and my mom is on the production side. Actually, if you imagine 40 years ago, 30 years ago, when you have a factory in China, those are not easy way to go. And actually, in fact, besides my mother is in charge of the production, literally all my factory are run by women. I have some male general managers and managers, but then I believe that this industry is tailored for it's even better for women as well. They are definitely more careful. They're very more detailed. And again, when it comes to fashion, I mean, it's a bit more actually, the women are like it even more a little bit on that as well. So, and I think to a certain extent, in my experience, the cultural thing, especially when I'm in China, the cultural thing that happens to be a big factor to it. Women tend to be, again, they're a bit more subtle as a Chinese lady. They are not as more aggressive as the men, and saying to speak out their words and to speak out what they want. But again, actually in all these years that we have been running factories, and actually all my managers are all female. I mean, I learned how to work with them, and somehow, again, it's a very, I do see there's a big potentials to it as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, Kenneth, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, I saw a very interesting question in a chat box, which asking what is the characteristic for female, which is very, very crucial as a management, something like that. And I'm joining in a Norwegian company where over 80% of staff or managerial grade or supervisory grade are female. So I can say for female, they are very detailed mind. They feels what you are feeling. So these are very crucial characteristics where I can say in some Chinese traditional culture or in some Asian traditional culture, we feel like, okay, these are the characteristics staying at home. So that's why a female should be stay at home and take care of the child. And for male, which should be go to the business circle and do more entertaining, do more big business. But what I'm getting from my real experience is those seems like more in-depth, those are more soft skills, which is very, very crucial in business role right now. So I'm also think this is one of the area which we should get touch in and promote this kind of feeling to all the supply chain management and let them know about this.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Marianne, I just wanted to add in one last point, which is that I think it's really important that we don't think about women as a homogeneous group. I think it's also really critical to think about women as having different identities. So the identity of the young mother in Bangladesh versus the migrant worker that's making her way over to Jordan, who's 50 years old, who's maybe supporting a family back at home, versus the high-powered executive in New York City. I mean, women all come with their own unique identities, and I think it's really important too when we think about this topic is not to pigeonhole people into one particular category or another, and to recognize that identities are layered. And it's sort of multifaceted. And so to really take that into account when we build programs to support women into leadership positions.
I'd like to add to that, and I think we shouldn't pigeonhole men either. I think the assumption is that all men are sometimes dinosaurs and can't be open to suggestions. I think often what happens is opportunities to look at different options for people to be selected for jobs is just not there. And so they go with what they know. I mean, I think there's a lot of men, including myself, who would love to see a lot more diversity, a lot more involvement of different types of women, but often the systems and the procedures and the hierarchies just really haven't allowed themselves to be that way. So, I mean, what needs to really happen is for there to be some type of a plan that basically says, as a company, we are open to finding the right people, whether they're men or women, and emphasizing the importance of what a person brings to a particular job, and just trying to have that diversity happen as a result of the fact that they bring different things to the table.
Yes, good point. Emphasizing, the uniqueness and identities, and not just separating people by gender, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, I love the way discussion is going. And
Actually, yeah, I mean, my personal experience is that I think, I mean, I would definitely suggest the people to speak up. Actually, again, in the modern world, I mean, the right now is, if you are trying to hide yourself, I mean, although no matter how hardworking you are, but then no matter it's a male or female, but then if you just hide yourself, not showing, sometimes you have to show up yourself to that you're capable for this job. You know, sometimes you have to fight for a job, a position as well. So I think, I mean, one of the things is that having female to speak up, to speak their mind, and just to, and then that will be one good thing. And actually, the another thing I would definitely suggest is about data analysis. Like even when you run the factories, when you run all these e-com business, whatever it is, again, I mean, learn how to analyze different data. I mean, get yourself in that positions is also a good thing to do. So speak up and learn more about like the modern manager leadership roles is a crucial part of that as well.
And one thing to add up is it talks about data. I have one interesting experience is I've talked with some factories in China, and honestly speaking, not really as that diverse as we thought. But for some factory we found, basically the male and female are almost, I can say 50-50 or even more female supervisors than male. So sometimes if you are not putting a kind of stereotype, or you are not putting kind of glasses when you're trying to promote or getting some people to in an appropriate position, you will find there is no any discrimination or any the gender diversity is actually here. Because if you solely based on the skills or based on the level of works, basically there shouldn't be a problem there. So the only thing is whether the management is putting their own glasses when choosing the appropriate person to be promoted.
Yes, good point. Yeah, thanks everyone. This is a really good overview of some of the challenges as well that we're facing. I wondered, you know, for the benefit of the audience as well, who's listening to this conversation, are there any specific guidance or actions you could, you know, suggest to members of the audience, depending on their position in the supply chain, and what they could be doing differently, perhaps, or perhaps things to avoid even?
I think unconscious bias is a really important topic. I took a course recently on inclusivity. I can never say that word right. Within business, and it was something honestly I didn't really know a lot about before I actually sort of focused on it. And it made me realize that I also had a lot of biases myself. And one of the things that I learned was that sometimes we can go in with a perception of what a good sort of manager or supervisor looks like, and that we often look for ourselves in the people that we hire. And it was great because it forced me to challenge my own perceptions that I tend to hire women that think like me, that like maybe look like me, that are close to me because that's who I identify with. That's who I kind of like hanging out with. And I think it's really important sort of when you think about women in supervisory committees, that we put systems in place that help us to overcome that unconscious bias. So I think sort of having diverse hiring panels is another really sort of important thing to have. It's really hard in small businesses to do that. That's one thing I've realized being at Diginex, because it's like, okay, there's not that many of us, but it is a really good practice, I think, to have equal number of women and men and diverse backgrounds on a hiring panel, so that you're not just sort of creating another pool of yourself when you do your hiring. And I think another really good best practice is helping, if you're in like sort of a brand level company, investing in your supply chain so that it makes it easier for them to hire women. So actually sometimes subsidizing that training for women so that they can make it from, let's say, the line level into a supervisory position. So removing those barriers and sort of facilitating the way for that hiring. And then I think I did have one last point, but I think I lost it. So it's okay. I'll hand it over to somebody else and then I'll pop back in if I think about it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important is mentoring. You know, I've seen in the chat, there are a number of people who have basically said, well, it's not really possible in certain locations to be able to be outspoken, partly because the culture doesn't necessarily reinforce it or help to bring it about. But if you are able to get women who are already in leadership roles, who have demonstrated that they are able to chart a course forward, they are great champions to help other women to look at what they have to offer, look at where their weaknesses are, look at where their strengths are, and then apply that to kind of the stepping stone that will help them to get the managerial or supervisory position that are out there. So, I mean, this part of the reason why this transition doesn't take place is that there isn't kind of a mechanism that helps people navigate through the process. And in the absence of that, not as many people are given those opportunities.
Actually, there's one question from Laura was asking about not everyone has the confidence to speak up. And how would I suggest to tackle it? Again, as I said, speaking up is a good thing. I mean, you know how to express yourself. It's always an advantage to that as well. But then when it comes to, so a lot of people love to talk, but then, the next things I talk about is data analysis. It's like, okay, learn, again, you don't need to talk a lot, but then there's the data also will speak about what the problem will be and what is their suggestions and all that. So there's just like KNO, when we're working with them, they have a lot of platform for us, for our colleagues to share what they have in mind. And definitely now with there are more and more channels for them to speak up, or not just by really speak up, but then they can write it. I mean, it's a good thing that they can connect, and with all the telecommunications now, they can easily access to their managers and say, you know, okay, this is what I see, this is what the problem is, and this is what I suggest. So this is always something that can be it's easier and happening.
And adding to that, I think a systematic promotion and a kind of appraisal system is also important. If we saw some factories, I always found some factories, when they do the promotion, they do a kind of nomination within inside their inner circle. The supervisors just trying to pick one or two which seems more closely to them and promote them. And if I ask the supervisor, what is the criteria you choose them? Mostly they said, oh, because it seems like he or she is helping me. But I think to be more non-biased based, we are asking factory to build up a more objective appraisal or objective promotional system, which so based on a certain kind of criteria. This is something we were working with some factories, and which I think this is also one thing it could be bring up.
Yeah, thanks, Kenneth. Yeah, that's a good example actually of also, like, you know, initiatives which are currently going on. Are there any particular initiatives that you guys might want to highlight, either positive or negative reasons, that are helping to kind of collaborate right now with this issue? Because I think there's different perspectives, there's different audiences and different impacts. But what do you think is doing well right now in terms of collaborative efforts in the space, perhaps, or doing badly?
I think one of the positive transitions that's taking place is more emphasis on the concept of ESG. Now, for many companies that are dealing with ESG, they're the larger brands now, but I think what's ultimately going to happen as the world comes to accept the fact that business has to go beyond just profits, prestige, and growth to actually having companies do right by the world, the S in ESG and the G in ESG, for the most part, focus on the right things that should happen. There should be gender diversity. There should be possibility of advancement. There should be a whole variety of things that are highlighted as what the investors expect and what consumers expect. So as I say, initially this would be something that the brands will have, but I think ESG will eventually trickle down to all components within the supply chain. We're not talking about that now, but I think factories and even eventually sub-factories will be held kind of accountable for trying to be meet the standards of what ESG is trying to focus on. And so I'm hoping that this particular trend will eventually translate into a lot more gender diversity over time.
I think what's a little bit frustrating is that we're so far away from where we need to be. Like one of the World Benchmarking Alliance had come out with their gender benchmark earlier, I think it was last year. And when you look at the supply chain section of the number of companies that are focusing on gender within their supply chain, it's extraordinarily low. I think there are certain companies, like I think Unilever is doing a lot, for example, on gender in their supply chain. But still, most companies, I think, are focusing on the more critical sort of labor exploitation, sort of, child labor, forced labor. Gender is still seen as like a nice to have, like, ooh, that's a positive thing. But it's kind of like the secondary thing that you do after you tackle sort of everything else. And so what I'd love to see is more sort of data-driven analytics about numbers on management positions in supply chains, more incentives, commercial incentives that are tied to it. And just generally brands being much more aware of the demographics in their supply chain.
Actually, for me, I don't know. I mean, for me, in my world, in my world, I'm seeing 70% of the people that I'm dealing with, it's all women. I mean, again, I would not say, I mean, I would say women are a bit more, I mean, I mean, again, if you are really serious about making a quick growth on your career, don't come to the fashion business. I mean, the fashion business is a very slow growth, a marathon type of a business, and usually, and people that stay here long enough are more down to earth people instead of really a salesperson, kind of that. So, but in my world, I see actually, in fact, 70% are women. So, and I think, and actually my mom taught me a long time ago, hire women. It's the best thing for you, because they will take care of, they are more, they're more consistent. They are not like, I mean, especially when it comes to China, I'm sorry, to a certain extent, see, look at other factories, when they do well, and then somehow they will think something else. They're not really focusing on the garment business anymore. And then they start investing into other different things. So I mean, one thing I see is, I mean, in China is definitely, or in my world, it's mostly women as well. So they now, all the women beside me all speak up. So it's one thing that they do well.
If I could just respond to that just quickly, I know I'm jumping in, but I lived in Bangladesh for 5 years and visited many factories, and a number of the ones that I visited, you're right, it's 95% women that are working, but they tend to be often on the floor. And what sometimes happens with the 5% of the management and supervision jobs is you have very highly qualified women who have been there for a long time, absolutely know the business inside out, and then somebody from the outside, a guy, is brought in, and they end up basically doing his job for him because he doesn't have the experience. If they would just kind of look at the human resources that exist already there, people who understand the business, understand the quality issues, understand what needs to be done, and just allow for there to be some type of a recruitment hierarchy that encourages in-house people from doing it, then those positions would be filled by people who already know what needs to be done.
Yeah, and I think it is really geography centric. It's true. Bangladesh, it's 10% of women are in management positions, and it is probably higher in other countries.
Yeah, in China, I think it's probably more, especially for a garment business. And talks about ESG report, which is very interesting, where as a brand, we should truly publish everything inside the ESG report. But from my experience, it's easy to publish a number, but depth of number is an issue. It's very, very easy to disclose a high percentage of women coverage in supply chain in garment business. But if you talk about whether it's truly diversified or whether the women workers only focus in sewing departments, or are they really able to be promoted? This is another issue. So I'm quite agree with other speakers that the depth of the content inside ESG report should be more, including more data, more analysis, instead of just disclosing the percentage of female workers, normally global or in country-wise.
That's a good point, Kenneth. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to take the conversation as well to the different parts of supply chain. So imagining for people today as well who are perhaps new to, the factory worker environment, what it's like to be a worker, which is obviously where I spend a lot of my time thinking about. Are there any specific actions or guidance or things that can be done, like imagining you're a factory worker today, or imagining what the factory workers on the line can be doing differently to perhaps encourage their colleagues, or perhaps to step up into leadership roles themselves? Is there anything that you've experienced in your time that would help the audience understand how the factory workers themselves may feel in particular as well? Maybe Paul.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I keep going back to my Bangladesh experiences, and I've worked in, 20 Asian countries. That's the one that I have the most experience, and I've been going back ever since. Is you have multi-stakeholder events where businesses come together, as part of conferences to discuss things, and you generally don't get this topic. And I think that just trying to introduce the fact that there are business reasons why it's important to have diversity, to have people who have experience, to have people who have a different perspective on what, especially in the fashion world, we should be making decisions on, and so forth. And so I think entering this topic into more of the exchanges so that companies see other companies talking about it, and that peer pressure helps to change the balance and to offer more opportunities for people to be brought in, I think would be a really good thing to do.
I definitely totally agree. I think we mentioned a lot of things about ESG, and we mentioned about a lot of the studyings and all that. And I, as I said multiple times, I mean, the step up. I mean, there are. I mean, especially just as I said, also that there's now so many channels, communication channels that you can connect it to the management to prove them that you are capable. I mean, you can, to prove your ability as well. So there's a lot of channels nowadays, and of course, learn in my. I mean, most of the, they tend to be, you just have to prove yourself that you are capable for this job, and that will be one thing. It's important, not whether you're women or male. So you just have to kind of like push yourself to that, because sometimes when you're in the factory level, there are so many people, and as an owner or running a factory, you tend to miss out some people as well. So, but then I'm sure nowadays the world has changed so dramatically. All the different models is changing, evolving. So there's a lot of opportunities ahead. there's a lot of opportunities ahead. That's what I think.
Thanks, Paul, for the positivity as well. Yeah, so I've actually, time has kind of gone through really nicely, but also we've nicely integrated some questions from the audience as we've been going along. But yeah, encourage everyone to keep sharing. And I'm going to now start kind of picking up some of these questions as well to dive into from you guys in the audience, which I am loving that this chat is pretty active. So one of the questions we've just had from Raki is they've been in the industry for 26 years, and what they observed is perhaps, is this about a lack of trust on the capability of women, or are there other factors? Would love to hear different perspectives. So yeah, seems like you've had a lot of experience observing at a factory level. So yeah, anyone want to comment more about this particular point?
I feel like there's so many systemic barriers in place to women being able to lead well, because often we are the primary caregivers. Like I know for me as a professional with 2 kids, what really helped me was having shared family responsibilities. So feeling like I was supported, having access to good childcare. And I think that's an issue still in many global supply chains, is that women don't have access to affordable childcare. It also comes down to things like, having flexible leave days and just really being able to manage those different responsibilities, because I think that's often why women are seen as unreliable, is because number one, maybe they're not getting that mentorship or support that they need in the workplace. Or number two is that they're trying to balance a lot of different things. And so we need to make sure that everything surrounding that woman is there to support her in her leadership position, and also maybe also doing more training with women about what it means to be a professional. I know, for example, whenever I went to factories in India, they'd say, well, the women go away for 3 weeks and then they come back. And I think there needs to also be training on sort of the worker's side to understand what it means to be a professional, and to really make the expectations clear in the workplace about what that means. So yeah, I think it's a sort of a mix of different factors.
Thanks, Leah.
I've an experience when talking with a factory. I ask why you are not really promoting some female staff from the company. They said because they're afraid if some female staff to get pregnant, or they have child, they have to take care of the child. And I think this is a good chance now to disrupt these kind of thoughts, because everyone here attending is mostly working from home. And 2 years before, no one would imagine you can work just as normal when you're working in your home, staying with your kids, even when you're cooking at the same time you're working. But maybe sometimes you will feel, as myself, my current experience is, I'm working more efficient at home when compared on what I'm done inside the office. So this is a very good example to show sometimes what you thought is not really the truth. And so as the women's staff, even I'm not talking about, maybe men could also take care of the child, but a lots of thoughts like women will have to stay at home because they will take care of the child. They have to find a good child care. Otherwise, you cannot work good in the office. Maybe it's a good chance to flip these kind of thoughts, especially at the time of pandemic. And another thing is we have to build up a good trust inside the management in the workers level. We are, or maybe I will share a little bit more in the later section. But maybe I can touch a little bit, like we are doing a project in Bangladesh, which is building up a system to help women to bring up their voice. But at the very beginning, we are not training the workers. We are training up the supervisors and management first, because if just like you are growing a crop, if you are not having a good soil, you cannot grow a good crop at all. So, and this is another thing, building a trust inside the management and building the trust between the management and the workers is a very crucial step one for all further gender diversity actions.
You know, I've been hearing the biases that people have and the myths for years. You walk in and it's the pregnancy thing, and it's the emotion thing, and it's a number of other things. And kind of my response always is, well, why don't you test those biases? You know, hire somebody who's qualified and see whether or not these biases hold up. And what we've seen time and time again is when women are put in responsible positions and given terms of reference and they know what they need to do, they'll do it. And they will demonstrate that many of those biases and those myths and misconceptions can be turned around. But unless you offer the opportunity for that to happen, if you say, well, we're not going to do it because of all of these things, then you never know. And so it's just, you know, part of the process is just to encourage management decisions in the direction of saying, try something new. If you think it's that way, try it and see what happens. And oftentimes the women will step up and demonstrate that in fact that's not the case.
I can share my mother, my experience with my mother. I mean, she has 3 kids. Again, they started with nothing. And then she's responsible for a lot of the projects. Again, it's just that I think in my sense, like she really take good care of the kids, as well as, of course, she really run the business perfectly, as well as, of course, taking care of the families and other part of the families as well. So it's not easy to be a woman. It's not easy to be a woman, and it's not easy to be a woman that with kids as well. I mean, but then I would say I will separate them from trust with capability. I mean, a lot of them have capability. You just have to prove that you have that capability so that people will be trusting you. So I mean, I've seen many really smart people as well. So we all have our problems. We all have our genders. So how do you work and put yourself in extra effort to achieve that job? It's not easy, but then it's definitely possible.
Thanks, Paul. Looking at the time as well, I think we'll
tackle... I would like to jump in. There's a very interesting question from Patrick. So if I would I personally love to hear an answer to that. So he's asking, is this something a local government should include themselves in? Like giving some sort of a tax break or other benefits for the companies who hire a certain percentage of women in leadership roles?
You know, I've worked with governments for years, and you know, a lot of governments will come up with policies and procedures that say the right thing, but don't necessarily translate into action. So, I mean, in principle, anything that is done to add value in multiple ways to moving in this direction should be encouraged. I'm just not sure you're going to get much kind of change if the government makes a policy, because oftentimes they don't really follow up.
I totally agree. I
always think moving from government is a very, very good start. For example, in China, they start a new, in some provinces, they start letting parental or longer maternity leaves for staff, which you can say not truly related to this, but this is a good move. What I think is not think this is small steps, but I think the governments do is the kind of pushing on a kind of helping on enterprises to move on the next level. So I always think this is a good thing.
Yeah, thanks. And also Vice from our team, perhaps you'd like to take the chance to pick one final question from the audience or share a question as well.
I think one is
Good. Okay. I'll pick perhaps this question that's come in from Saba actually, and she posted a question earlier which was interesting. Perhaps I'll pick up on that one because related to the aspect of data collection, which I know a few of you mentioned, I do find that the S part of data is very tricky right now to kind of track and measure. So what have you guys done perhaps to collect more data on the S part of ESG?
You know, I find that people are always saying that, well, there's no quantitative information related to that. It's just not right. You know, you have audits, you have grievance mechanism maps, you have, you know, all kinds of documentation related to employees and hours and what levels people are. The data is there. It's just the will to translate that into some type of material understanding of what's happening. And analysis is often lacking. And that's the reason why organizations that collect that information and analyze it are so relevant and important. And to a certain extent, this allows for the possibility of people to see where the gaps are, to see where the disparity is, to be able to make decisions based on something that's black and white right in front of them. So, I mean, I'm really tired of, you know, having people tell me that the S can never be measured. It's just not true. There's so much data. And this is the new frontier. If we really want ESG to be balanced, it has to be balanced in such a way that it's as equal to G and E. And we come up with the indicators and we measure things. And then I think that's going to have a massive incentive on, you know, either being a carrot or a stick, depending upon which side of the fence you're on.
Yeah, totally agree. Anyone else want to share on that point? No? Okay. Well, perhaps this is a good chance for me to also do a bit of a sum up, but also pick up one of the points that's been mentioned in the chat, which is about the speed of change. And I do also agree that perhaps it's frustrating that, you know, we're sounding the bell so loudly on these issues right now to do with women. And if in fact, is that needed, or should we let things happen more organically and naturally? Anybody want to share on that a bit? Paul?
I think I mean, when it comes to the speed of change, I mean, I think it's, for me, as I said, I always say is that in my all my managers are actually 100% are all female, and I think they did a lovely job. I mean, I don't have, I am in Hong Kong while they are in, I mean, or all my teams are literally female. So I think that that there are definitely I mean, just show the management that there's a capability of that as well. So and I definitely see, I mean, in China, I definitely see a lot of it. I'm sorry, I cannot speak about other part of the Asian countries or whatever, because I really focus on China. So I think that we're seeing positive change.
Yeah, I mean, change has happened, but you know, I had this discussion 10 years ago, and I had this discussion 20 years ago, and I had this discussion 30 years ago, and we're still having the same discussion. Enough is enough. I mean, come on, let's just get on with it. We know that women have something to offer. We know they should be given an opportunity. We know that the system's going to be better as a result of that. You know, there has to be a sense of urgency. And the fact that this panel is taking place, I think, is an important step in the right direction. With all of the other things that are happening, this has been put on there at this particular point to emphasize the importance of an issue with all of those other things happening, because it's equally important, and it should be given equal emphasis as well.
And I think I'm truly agree with Matt, and don't think you have to do a lot as the first step. Joining the panel is one of them. Trying to promote your thoughts to your management or to your supervisors is another step. always do something step by step is I think what keeps you moving. Even for like my company, we are a Norwegian company. We have a lot of female managements. If we travel to factory, what we are showing is a kind of different angle from them. Always my audit team is all female, honestly. And when they travel to the factory, sometimes the factory manager will say, "Oh, we're surprised because we seldom see a lot of female auditors traveling all around." So this is, I think this is the first step, what we could do. Try to change, give another impression to the supply chain that we have, or you have to change.
Thanks, Kenneth. Yeah. And thanks everyone for, passionate moment just then. And I think also some really good practical guidance actually. And yeah, Matt, totally agree that hopefully this panel is actually a really concrete action and good result. And I know these panel discussions kind of happen all the time, but I really hope that everyone today has genuinely taken away something useful and perhaps different and unique. I'm just going to sum up what we have discussed as well. I've got a couple minutes left. So some of the key things I heard, some of the notes that I made. I think a couple of key points that I've noticed is pace of change. I think a lot of the audience members, perhaps as well as us, are feeling the frustration about going round in circles. One reason why I'm a female entrepreneur in the space, obviously, is because I believe by being entrepreneurial and having a startup mind, we can obviously take actions immediately and quickly. So those are just things that I've learned over time. And I guess my personal perspective, looking at this conversation as a female myself, who's also kind of a leader of our own team, I think role models are definitely more what we need, which is one of the things we highlighted today. More mentors, more people, not necessarily just females, just male role models who are also willing to support, which I think we have had on our panel today as well, which is amazing and such a privilege to be in the presence of people who are not only talking about this stuff, but actually doing it. So I think for me, it also goes back to who you decide to surround yourself with, whether that's people who are going for it, who are taking actions, who are thinking differently and willing to educate themselves and also be humble. I think let's surround ourselves by more of those types of people and also be those types of people and live this out, guys. So yeah, I'm gonna just couple of extra slides, shameless plug for you all, since we are here and we are doing something practical to address the challenges here today. I wanted to just share a bit about KNO Global and who we are for those of you who maybe haven't heard about us. Our vision is to humanize the supply chain. This is a photo of some women using our program right now in a factory in China. And we've been able to educate them on topics like harassment, leadership, how to step up in the space and talk about your challenges. And some of the people that we're working with are on the panel today, which I'm very proud to say. And it's actually a female team that's helped me get to where I am too. And this is our platform, which is focused on community engagement and actually encouraging people to step up. Happy to share more about it with anyone who's interested. And we allow brands and factories to collect real-time data on the S part of SDG and ultimately track improvements. A special offer for today, and I also am sharing this out to you guys to also get your feedback, because we want to create a scalable solution that can reach 50 million workers globally. We are offering these special packages in addition to our KNO Premium, which is our standard solution. We're now offering a KNO Basic and a KNO Assessment for people who want to get started, but perhaps you're not quite ready to explore the whole ecosystem yet, but you want to get your foot, in the door. We're now offering supplier assessments to assess the readiness of your suppliers and your supply chain or your factory yourself at a very low cost. And as well as get a market ranking on our platform to see how you compare with other factories in the space. At a second level, our KNO Basic package allows you to get a baseline report assessment done of all of your workers and an initial highlight on areas for improvement. And this is not just a survey, this is a two-way feedback loop between managers and workers to actually solve real problems and have a dialogue. And then our KNO Premium package, which most of our customers today are using, allows you to get advanced data analysis and track improvements. So that's my shameless plug for you guys. And if you are really interested to actually try something today, I encourage you to scan this QR code, which will allow you to get a free demo of our platform and actually allow you to have a voice. So if you scan this code right now, you're going to get the whole worker experience that you have on our platform. if you were a factory worker today, apart from we're asking you questions about the event, and we're asking for your voice and your feedback. You can type comments, share photos, check out videos, and let us know what you think. And as a limited time offer, anyone who completes this short activity, which will take you 1 to 2 minutes, will get a half price supplier assessment. So if I were you, I'd definitely scan this QR code right now and do something practical to address this challenge, as well as get in touch with us if you're interested. So finally, thank you to everyone. We're 2 minutes over now, but we couldn't have done this without the incredible people that you see here today on your screen. And I'm really actually just impressed and overwhelmed by also the input we've had from the audience today, and really love that everyone's so passionate and direct and yeah, very productive. Thank you, Thomas, for sharing that. You know, glad to hear this has been a productive conversation, because none of us want to, you know, waste our time. We could all be out there encouraging more leaders to, women leaders, step up as we speak. So round of applause to everyone here today, including yourselves watching, including the speakers. And yeah, we hope to see you again soon. Hopefully this is not the last time you'll be seeing us. And if anyone wants to follow up with any of our panelists today, please do check out on the LinkedIn event where you all signed up. There's actually a link to all of their profiles there, if that's easiest for you. And you can also reach out directly to all of them for their contacts as well. So that's about it from me. And yeah, unless anyone has any final parting words, we will leave it there and hope to see you guys soon. We'll be sharing the recording after the event and a summary email as well. So watch out for that and be sure to share it with everyone you know and celebrate this conversation. So yeah, thanks to everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.